the first thing we need to understand is that work is not a place anymore. And that's for about half the jobs. So half the people do not need to go anywhere. Where work is a place, there are still jobs like that. So you're going to have dentists and physiotherapists and things like that where you need to go to a place, you need to treat someone or you need to do something. But for those where work is not a place, they can sit anywhere. So that means you've got the choice to go into an office or not. And I predict that most firms and companies and organizations where work is not a place anymore will still have a hybrid approach. They'll still have some kind of blended approach where people can pick 1 or 2 days a week and they have it on a roster basis. But the implication of that is that you need much less space. So the very expensive office space, you can cut that down to about a quarter or a third, and people can choose which days they want to come in. Policies are already changing in organizations. Number one, the remuneration policy. We are starting to see changes where you remunerate for outcomes and not inputs and not activities and not complexity. What have you done? What have you achieved? What is the outcome? So that's the first one. The second one is that job descriptions are being rewritten from activities and long lists into outputs and outcomes. The third one is that job evaluation policies are changing from very many levels to much fewer levels so that you can accommodate the agile work teams, you can accommodate the new organization design. And lastly, the biggest one changing is performance management, where you now again need to rewrite all your performance compacts in terms of outcomes. What is the outcome that the person needs to achieve? And that's the only way you can work in the new way of work, where it's blended or work from anywhere, or where you don't actually see employees. Then there are a whole lot of other policies that it touches on, like leave. I mean, do you actually need a leave policy? Basically, leave policies, you don't need leave policies, maternity, paternity. There are a whole bunch of policies around insurance. If you're not at work, are you still insured by the company? And what we have to realize is that robotics and artificial intelligence and technology is going to devour those jobs that you don't need to be there. So we need to start thinking very, very carefully about how to incorporate those into our policies as well, because many humans have to now start interacting with these robots, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So the first thing that companies can do to prepare for the future is understand the landscape. Too many of them are still on the hamster wheel running and not really paying enough attention to what's going on around them. So they can start talking among themselves and having think tanks where you have a special session, a morning session that says, we're going to look into the future. We're going to stand on the shoulders of giants and see what mega trends are going to impact us. Then we will develop plans to counter and accommodate and work with those mega trends. Instead of letting it happen to us, we will be much more proactive, and too many companies are not being proactive enough. Secondly, they need to listen to their employees, because very often employees know what's coming and they know how to do the job better. They just don't want to lose their job. So if you make it a lot more secure for employees, and you get their ideas, you make sure that everyone contributes and make them feel part of the team, and do it on a non-retrenchment basis. The second thing companies should be doing is speaking and listening to their employees. The third one is scenario planning. What if we don't need all our office space anymore? Can we sell off our offices? What if we rent a boardroom as we need it? Because the organizations that have boardrooms that you can just rent. What if our receptionist doesn't need to sit at a desk at our company? You can teleport the receptionist and she can work from anywhere, or he can work from anywhere. And what if we don't need offices at all, and we, as we need them, rent offices for a month or 6 months or for a project or something like that. The first thing companies should be doing is retraining their leaders. And leaders need to know how to manage remotely. That's the first thing. Too many leaders are stuck in the old block, plan, lead, organize, and control. And they don't know how to manage folk that are not visible to them. So that's step one. The second thing our leaders need to be trained and educated in is how to motivate people if they can't see them. So what can leaders be doing? What should they be doing? And thirdly, how to be compassionate remotely. Our leaders are not compassionate, and it's not entirely their fault. You're not taught compassion at a business school. You're not taught compassion on leadership programs. So with the pandemic and with Black Lives Matter and with massive world events, you could say that people on planet Earth are punch drunk. And not everyone has coped as well as everyone else. That means people are on edge. They need mental comfort. They need to be treated slightly differently and led slightly differently. From an employee point of view, so that was the leaders. From an employee point of view, they know how they need to be taught how to avoid professional loneliness. So you sit at home in your flat or apartment, or you may be living alone, and you get lonely. So how do you deal with the professional loneliness? We've always paid attention to physical wellness. So now the next big thing is mental wellness. Employees need to be taught how to look after their mental health. And there are lots of things that one can do. You know, the range is wide, and there I think it'll be fit for purpose. What sort of person are you? What will work for you? Some people need to schedule their diaries better, because with all these Zoom meets, they're back to back. You don't leave the 30-minute gap anymore where you can drive and have 30 minutes to yourself and think. You know, when it was a face-to-face meeting, now employees are completely overworked, overscheduled. If the statistics are right about fluoxetine and Prozac and things like that, then people need to take more care of their mental health. Organizations need to remove the stigma of mental health and mental wellness, and do a lot more in that space.